In this video, I'll show you how to set up Tailwind CSS in a SvelteKit project. I'll start by creating a new SvelteKit project with npm init svelte at next, and I will call this project SvelteKit/Tailwind CSS. Here I'll select skeleton project, and I'll answer no to these questions, but feel free to answer whatever makes sense for you. Next, I'll install Tailwind CSS and its peer dependencies with npm install-d, Tailwind CSS, post CSS, and auto prefixer. Alright, next I need to create a Tailwind config file which will be the central place for all customizations in Tailwind. I can do that with npx Tailwind CSS init, and while I'm there, I'll also add the -p flag to create a necessary post CSS config file as well. And I'll quickly change the extension for both these files from .js to .cjs for common.js. Alright, let's take a look at our new Tailwind config file. Tailwind CSS is a framework for building bespoke user interfaces, and it has been designed from the ground up with customization in mind. This Tailwind config here is the central place for those customizations. I have a theme option here, which is where I can add or customize things like colors, font sizes, or the spacing scale. I can also register first-party or custom plugins here. And there's a few other configuration options, but a very important one, which we're going to look at right now, is this content array here. Tailwind generates CSS on demand based on the classes we actually use in a project. But for it to work, I need to tell Tailwind where I will be using classes, so where my template files where I use Tailwind classes are located in this project. In a SvelteKit project, most of the templating action happens in this src directory. You can see we have a routes folder with the index.svelte file. And so I could reference this file in my content array, src/routes/index.svelte. Okay, but what if as I build my project, I have a new route called about.svelte? Well, of course, I could add this route to my content array, but as you can imagine, it would be quite tedious to list all of these files individually. I'd need to come back in my Tailwind config file every single time I add a file in my project. Luckily, the content configuration in Tailwind supports glob patterns, so I can use wildcard characters to match multiple files. For example, I can replace index here with a star, and this will catch any file with the .svelte extension inside src/routes. This, unfortunately, only matches files immediately inside the parent folder, so routes here. So if here I had a file in about/me.svelte, this file wouldn't be matched by this pattern since we moved up one directory. The good news is I can add /$ inside my pattern, and this will look for any file inside a directory, not only the immediate children, but also inside subdirectories. So it will match routes/about/me.svelte, and it will also match /about/teams/dev/brad.svelte. So let me remove that line. And actually, the routes directory is not the only directory we might want to look at. In my application, I may very well have a components directory as well. And so here I can simply remove the routes and look at every directory inside the src folder. Okay, currently this covers only Svelte files, and I can already see at least one file that is not .svelte, but .html. This is where the app is getting rendered, and in certain scenarios, you might want to add Tailwind classes to the HTML element or to the body element. And if you are to do so, make sure that this file is also in your content array. So I could add it here, but here, since it's in the src directory as well, I can try to combine it with the first pattern here. So obviously .svelte is not going to cover it, but turns out you can use curly braces like so when you want to match multiple values separated by a comma. So here I could say, let's match files with a .svelte extension, but also HTML, so it covers this file. And we may very well have also JavaScript files and perhaps also maybe TypeScript. All right, so now I can remove this. And I think we're good with the content configuration. What's important to understand here is what goes inside this content array might be different for your specific project. Essentially, you need to make sure that anywhere in your project where you're using Tailwind classes must be referenced in this content array. All right, let's keep going. Next, I'll create a new file in my src directory called app.css. And in there, I'll add the three Tailwind directives at Tailwind base, at Tailwind components, and at Tailwind utilities. And I want to import this file everywhere in my project. So we'll create a global layout in our routes folder, and the default layout is called __layout.svelte. In there, I'll have a script tag, and inside I'll import from the parent directory the app.css file that we've just created. And here I'll drop the slot tag, which is where our page content will be rendered. All right, we should be all good to go now. Let me just change the content of the index.svelte page, which is the home page. And here I'll delete this and have just an h1 that says hello world. I will start my dev server with npm run dev. And I will add some Tailwind classes to the h1 tag. Text 3XL. Yep. Font bold. Underline. And looks like everything's working.